Hello. Welcome to our weekly. We did do it last week and we're doing it this week. That counts as weekly and we'll do it next week. Our weekly engagement on what's happening in Ireland and around the world. Your chance to ask any questions you want. My opportunity to try to answer your questions. I'll do my best to get to them as they come in. Some of the things I thought we might want to chat about are the bill we introduced last week to turn off the toxic algorithms on social media. There's a whole bunch of research done by various people into what happens if you go and buy a random phone, go online, set up a social media account with no previous history, and how quickly, if you're identified as a young man, how quickly you're fed really toxic Andrew Tate, like awful, hateful material very, very quickly without you choosing to do it. Or if you're a young woman, you get the same kind of thing, but it's pro-eating disorder, pro-self-harm material. This stuff being pushed at people incredibly because of these algorithms. And so what our bill would do is to turn off those algorithms for all people under 18. So you can still have your social media account, of course, but you follow who you follow and you choose to create your own feed as opposed to these big companies deciding what's going to get you to keep your eyeballs on the screen as long as possible so we can sell more advertising regardless of the impact on people's mental health, physical health, and so on. And for those over 18, that it's off when you sign in and you can choose to turn it on, and that it has to be made publicly available what you're signing up for so you understand the algorithm that you're choosing to use. So we introduced that as first stage last week, and we'll be looking to do the next stage, second stage, which is where there's a big debate in it all and a vote in the coming next couple of months or so, hopefully. So eyes on this space. Obviously, the other thing a lot of people will rightly be talking about is the horror of another execution by ICE in Minneapolis. You had an effective general strike on Friday in Minneapolis of ordinary workers, young people, standing up against the terrorization that ICE represents. And then on Saturday, a young nurse, 30-something, Alex Pretty, was there to document what ICE was doing and was executed by ICE. He was protesting against the killing of Renee Good, which happened about a week and a half ago at this stage. There's been a number of other killings by ICE that have gotten no coverage. It's horrendous. And then what's in some ways even more horrendous, obviously the actual killing is the worst, but the lies by the US administration, by Trump describing this guy as a terrorist, saying he wanted to murder a bunch of people because he had a holstered gun. I mean, these are the same people who will talk about the right to bear arms, as you legally have the right in America, in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, you're allowed to carry a weapon in this way. He didn't have the weapon drawn. It was then drawn by the ICE officers who threw it away, and then he was killed after the weapon was taken away. And Trump trying to justify his murder. Absolutely horrendous. He was 39 years old. Kurd says, can you talk about Kurdistan? I can for a second. I saw there's going to be a protest outside the Dáil on Wednesday between, I think it's 12 and 3, 12 and 4. You might have the details there. Hi Irish Harry, I don't know, you may be logged in late. I started talking about the online safety bill we introduced, which is about Irish issues, but that's alright, we'll come back and talk about Irish issues again in a second. I think all these things definitely affect us, but we'll pivot back around. But this protest, which obviously if anyone's following what's happening, like Rojava has been a bright light in the Middle East over the past 10 years or so, and it's now facing potential extinction by the kind of combined forces of Western imperialism, reactionary forces in Syria, the new administration in Syria, all trying to crush what's left of Rojava. Keep your eye out on what's happening there. Just to pivot back to the Irish aspect of the ICE killing. Obviously, it's an Irish grandmother was in prison for months in America. There's lots of undocumented Irish people in America who are absolutely terrified now because of ICE. And for all those reasons, we're saying Micheál Martin should not be going over on Paddy's Day to greenwash Donald Trump, to give him a bowl of shamrock, to allow Trump to present himself as a friend of the Irish when he is terrorising Irish people in America, when he kidnapped the president of Venezuela, when he's threatening to invade Greenland, when he's imposed this board of peace, a board of warmongers, of dictators, of war criminals on the world in an attempt to effectively replace the UN, when he's involved in the colonisation of Gaza. We should not be going over there on Paddy's Day. The other thing I wanted to talk about quickly and then answer questions is, sorry, I'll answer the question about the Children's Hospital. Well, I don't have an update on the opening of Children's Hospital, so that's a quick answer. Weren't they saying it would be done by the end of this year? I think they were saying that, but I think probably then it'll slide again and the cost will go up again and the company, bam, will make more money than ever. Hi Robbie, when are you going to put the Irish people first? I put ordinary people first. I stand up for ordinary people, working class people in this country. That's why I helped to lead the anti-water charges movement, which successfully defeated the water charges. It's why I'm organising now to try and organise council tenants in South Dublin County Council to stop the proposal to drive up their rents. It's why I'm involved in there's a new name for it, but the New Cost of Living Coalition, organising a protest at the end of February demanding action on the cost of living crisis, which is really crucifying people. It's why every week I've been up demanding action in terms of the disabled people who have been particularly targeted in Ireland by the Irish government. Cuts of over €1,400. You might be trying to distract from all that by doing the work of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and pretending the problem is the left in this country. The problem is not the left. We have a right-wing government that serves the interests of the big developers, big landlords, the big grocery companies, big agri-food companies, those who are getting rich from the housing crisis and from the cost of living crisis. And I stand for all the ordinary people who suffer from those crises. I wanted to talk a little bit about the proposal that's coming. We still don't have a bill or a heads of bill. A heads of bill is like a summary of what legislation is going to be. But they're saying they've got a press statement from just under a week ago about the Communications Interception and Lawful Access Bill from Jim O'Callaghan. And this is a proposal to, quote, strengthen lawful interception powers. They want to be able to spy on your mobile phone more than they currently can. And this is an example of how what happens in America, what Israel does, all boomerangs back here. The most repressive powers that you see in America, they then try to get those powers for here to go after people. We know that the Guards ran a spying operation against the anti-water charges movement. It was called Operation Mizzen. If you Google that on Paul Murphy, you'll find a long article I wrote about it at the time. But it was an incredible campaign of espionage against people just protesting against water charges, right? And trying to demonise anti-water charges protesters and so on. So we need to take a stand against that. Thanks a lot, Mick Finnegan. Hope you're doing all right. Bellasknar, tell me where that closed Garda station is. Yeah, shady.ie. Nice name. I did raise this in the Dáil last week. I think it's shocking after going after disabled people in the budget. Now they're going after carers. Mario Duran Dominguez said, why don't you say anything about Iran, a regime that murdered more leftists than Pinochet? I don't anything from you. Probably I don't hear anything from you. I was out on a protest. We were pretty rained off, but I got to the end of the protest last Wednesday. I've been speaking out about what's happening in Iran. There's people out there saying the left didn't say anything about Iran, but that's not true. Don't believe those people. Listen to what we're actually saying. Yeah, we support an uprising against the regime in Iran. We also say that a return to the Shah, this guy Pahlavi, would be a disaster. He would just run the country in the interest of Israel and the interest of America, not in the interest of ordinary people. Under the Shah, they had a brutal secret police called the Savak. They had no right of freedom of expression, nothing at all. The Shah was effectively installed by a US and UK driven coup because the elected Prime Minister attempted to nationalise oil. And this is who they want back in power. So no to the current regime, no to the dictatorship that's in power, no to a return of the Shah, no to bombing and intervention by Western imperialism, which will only make it worse, and standing up for ordinary people in Iran. I don't want Ireland to be in NATO, but I'm upset at PvP's stance on Ukraine. A non-military solution to an invading army didn't work for Poland after Czechoslovakia was invaded. What do you think, Boots, we should do? I mean, Ukrainians have been fighting now for 4 years, and Russia is slowly, and at huge human cost of both Ukrainians and Russians, but slowly winning, slowly gaining territory. We're against the invasion. We think Putin should get out. It's the right of peoples in Ukraine to decide their own future. The people of Crimea to decide their own future. The people of the Donbass to decide their own future. The people of Ukraine to decide their own future. It's not for Russia to decide what country people live in. It's not for Putin and his imperialism. But the truth is that the legitimate war of national liberation against imperialist aggression of the Ukrainian people has been subsumed into a wider inter-imperialist conflict where NATO, the West, are happy to just allow Ukrainians to die in massive numbers in order to try to weaken Russia in some way. And therefore I think, like, we don't give up on calling for Putin to leave, but we don't have the power to make Putin to leave. And so far that's not what's happening. So alongside that, we call for a ceasefire and we call for peace. Let me just look at the chats here. No digital ID. I agree. If you're not happy with Paul, oh sorry, you got that. Don't you think Trump is making matters worse? I do. Independent COVID inquiry and updates to injury payments scheme. Yes to an independent COVID inquiry. I was in the Dáil during the week when someone was asking Micheál Martin about why don't we have a proper COVID inquiry, and he was like, "Oh, I think the UK one was terrible." And obviously, in a way, it was terrible, but like, they're not doing a proper inquiry here at all. It's all like behind closed doors. You know, it's like really a joke because they don't want their own policies to be exposed. The repression, could you raise the repression faced by Irish in Berlin by the state with the government ambassador? Yes. Richard Boyd Barrett, my colleague, actually visited the German ambassador last week, I think with Duncan Smith as well, to raise precisely this, the repression of Irish people in Germany. Hi, Luke. 113679 a year plus expenses. This man is on to go live on TikTok and bang on about the usual crap. Talk about them numbers. Hello, I will talk about them numbers. I don't receive that money. The vast majority of that money is used to fund local campaigns, donate to local groups. If there's strikes on, workers need support, all that kind of stuff. I take less than the average workers. Isn't it very naive of us to remain neutral in the current climate? Need plans to defend ourselves. Well, the world is divided into two blocks. Right. So if you're going to join a block, you got to join one of these. You tell me which one we should join. Should we join the Western Bloc, which is led by the US, which includes the EU, includes UK, which funded, armed, enabled the genocide in Gaza, which is currently shooting, killing their own citizens on the streets in the US, and their own president is lying about it, that are driving an agenda to increase militarization? Is that the bloc that we should join? Or should we join the Chinese-led other bloc, which includes Russia, which invaded Ukraine and implements plenty of their own imperialist policies? Which one do you think we should join? I think the best bet is to be outside of those blocs, exactly like what James Connolly said back at the time of World War I, neither king nor Kaiser. So neither Washington nor Beijing, neither Brussels nor Moscow. Be genuinely independent, and rather than getting into a race about building up our military that we can't win with these people, and just handing over more and more money to, in this case, French companies. Actually, Thales is the biggest winner. There was a story in the Irish Times during the week talking about that. Let's invest in housing, let's invest in healthcare, let's invest in special needs education, let's invest in therapists, and let's have a genuinely neutral position, which doesn't mean not calling things out, but it means not aligning militarily. It means kicking the US military out of Shannon. In my opinion, it means, given what's currently happening, not going to lick the boot of Donald Trump on Paddy's Day, incentivise them to engage in regenerative farming and pay farmers more and guarantee small farmers a decent income, which they're currently not. What would I do if Trump visited Ireland and spoke at the Dáil? I think I wouldn't be there for Trump speaking at the Dáil. Anyway, what came out of Richard's meeting with German ambassador? I didn't actually talk to Richard since, but I can guess, having met with ambassadors, like they will say, like, well, I don't think they make any of these decisions, but I'll bring the message back to my government. That's, so we need to follow it up. How can we as a nation hold Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil accountable and end the ridiculous reign? Get involved is the most important thing. Don't wait for the next election. The next election will be very important, yes. The coming by-elections will be very important, yes. But don't just wait for elections. Get involved. Get involved in the housing movement, cost of living movement. Get involved in defending our neutrality, our triple lock, and so on. So get active. Join People for Profit if you agree with us, or just get active in whatever way. What can we do to get the US warplanes out of Shannon? So it's a government policy, needs to be changed. Pressurise the government. There's an argument for another big mobilisation at Shannon to do that. We're already protesting. What else can we do? Protest more. Or organise as opposed to just protest. So I don't know what kind of movement you're involved in, but really try and get people involved, get more and more people like actively involved in building it, as opposed to just turning up to the protest. But turning up to the protest is great if you can do it, spreading the word, talking to people, and just appreciate that sometimes this can be a bit of a long battle. We don't win as quickly as we would like, but we can win if enough people stand American money, if there isn't already. Steve Bannon talking about developing a Donald Trump, the US ambassador, at this conference promoting Make America Great Again. The one thing I think it's becoming clear to people that these so-called patriots, they're just agents of US imperialism in this country. I saw some of them calling for Donald Trump to come and kidnap our Prime Minister. Now, I am not a fan of Micheál Martin. I despise Micheál Martin's politics. But I don't think he should be kidnapped by a foreign state. And if you're calling for Micheál Martin to be kidnapped by a foreign state, so, I don't know, Eddie Hobbs can be put in power if that's what you want, I don't think that's a very patriotic thing to be calling for. I'm in favour of us getting rid of Micheál Martin, of us getting rid of Simon Harris, but not relying on Donald Trump to do it. So I think some people can see through, they can look at what's happening on the streets of America. That's what these people want to see. That's what these people are supporting. And I think that will turn, some decent-minded people off them. But they're definitely a danger. Thanks, Care Champions. I emailed you back earlier today if you didn't get it yet. And, practical change of mechanics would aid political posturing. I don't fully understand that. Did I see the state of Pater Tobin in America? I did see the state of Pater Tobin in America. Jesus. On this protest, this anti-choice protest in America with all these MAGA fanatics after they killed the nurse in Minneapolis, and not a word to be said about it. Horrendous stuff. That's who Tobin is. But what's the answer? I think we're right to call for a ceasefire. Dave Bry 70 says, you came in on water charges. Look at you now. Everyone else's opinion doesn't count. What do you mean, Dave? I came in as a socialist opposed to water charges, using the methods of mass struggle, mass non-payment, and we won. That's the same kind of approach I tried to take to the housing crisis, cost of living crisis, the increase of people's rents. Your opinion counts. I don't have to agree with it, though. And since the water charges, I was elected in the by-election 2014. I was re-elected in 2016. I was re-elected. I was elected in the by-election 2014. I was re-elected in 2016. I was re-elected in 2020. In 2024, there was plenty of people saying, you never get elected again. You never get elected again. I was elected again. We'll see what happens in the next general election. But it seems to me that there's plenty of people who agree with me. Ultracross said, what can we do about the far right? Misinformation is trying to take over the narrative. Feels like hope is lost. I understand that feeling, but I don't think hope is lost. You look at the resistance in America, which is very powerful. The general strike, it gives a glimpse of that's the kind of stuff that's necessary if you're going to beat these people. So in Ireland, we need to organise. That's on an anti-racist basis. Explain to people why the enemy is not poor asylum seekers with nothing. They're not the ones responsible for the housing crisis. That's a distraction technique. Weren't really able to explain why I was part of the problem. But that's all right. Like, you can have your opinion. It's no problem. How do I feel about boycotting the World Cup this year? Yeah, I think it may be heading in that direction, all right. Thanks a lot, Steve. A failed Fine Gael supporter. That's a funny description. But thanks a lot, Steve. I appreciate it. Right, I'll try and wrap up shortly. Yeah, you asked that last time, Maeve, and I answered. You might not like the answer, but it's fine. That would be gas, all right, if it turned out to be the one time that we qualified. Who knows, Joe? Who knows? How does it? We finish on this one. How much does the government need to get wrong before they are booted, and how does it happen? Well, the most normal, most regular way it happens is that at the next general election they get kicked out. There was a good opinion poll at the weekend, which has Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael combined down to, I think, 33%. And broadly, the left party's doing quite well. So, it may happen then, in the next general election. I think we need to have momentum towards that. We need to have a vote left, transfer pact. We need clear principles in which we can say this is what a left government would do in a very fundamentally different. So, yeah, thanks for the chats. I'll be back next week. I think next Monday's a bank holiday, so we might do it Tuesday. Get involved. That's the kind of message from today. It might be the message from every day, but the message from today is get involved in People for Profit, if you agree with us, or just in a movement, in cost of living movement, housing movement, in the movement to defend neutrality. Shout out, actually, there is an important Irish neutrality meeting on Thursday night, I think 7 o'clock in Wynns. Am I right that it's Wynns Hotel? I think it's Wynns Hotel in Dublin. I think it's also going to be online. Just Google Irish Neutrality League. You should find it. Good luck to you all, including you, Dave Bry, 70. Bye-bye.